Hi, everybody. Welcome. I hope you guys are enjoying SmartCon so far. I'm here to talk to you about the DevX factor, right? Which is why great developer experience is a winning strategy. Now, quick show of hands. How many people here have got repos that they've started with great enthusiasm and abandoned about 3 days later? Yep. How many people have looked at error messages and had a WTF is going on moment? Exactly. 3 times this morning, exactly. This is how I wake up, to error messages. Exactly, I hear you. So this is the heart of the DevX problem, okay? So let me introduce myself first. My name is Zubin Pratap. I'm a developer relations engineer here at Chainlink Lab. I was previously an engineer at Google. I was a lawyer for 15 years before that. And let me tell you, DevX is not inherent to coding. Every specialist complex domain has an experience problem at onboarding new people. Around the world, doesn't matter what domain it is, from fishing through to the law, okay? It's because we don't know how to stand in the shoes of our first new users. That's why I'm so passionate about this. So if I start getting really feisty and fiery and speaking really fast, you know it's because I'm really on a roll, okay? So slow me down if you struggle to understand. Right, so let's first start by setting the scene. What is developer experience, right? Well, there are 2 words, developer and experience, and everyone focuses on the developer part. But I think that's a mistake, because it's really all about the damn experience, right? It's all about the subjective experience of the developer. So who are we talking about? We're talking about developers. We're talking about the experience that emerges from their interaction with their tools, their workflows, and their processes. Okay, by the way, meetings are also a form of DevX. So too many meetings is poor DevX. You could argue that, right? And so on. So because it's all about the feeling and the emotional content of the experience, it's very easy for us to gloss over this. But that would be a mistake, right? Because really, a good, smooth developer experience should feel like the cat on the left with the wiggly toes. But most of us have experienced the one on the right. And this is a problem, because we tend to focus more on the tools, we tend to focus more on the velocity metrics and so on, because we say coding is hard, and so we accept that the experience is rubbish sometimes. And so we say, that's because coding is hard. It doesn't have to be that way, though, right? And what really matters here is the subjective feeling, the emotional content, which is what separates developer experience from the tools they use, is the emotional content, right? And what drives developer effectiveness. Now, GitHub has a fantastic blog on this, and they say there are 3 things that developers care most about. Productivity, also known as velocity, right? Impact, and satisfaction. And the third one is fundamental to the first 2. Why? Because you can have a tool that produces awesome productivity and incredible impact, but no one uses it, right? And so without the satisfaction piece, it's just clapping in the woods alone on your own. Now, we all here are in the Web3 space, and we know, if we're really honest about this, that the Web3 experience, not just for developers, for everyone, is not great. So it's a fantastic tool, right? Phenomenal tool, great technology, and yet adoption can be a problem, because experience matters, right? Now, the experience component is extremely subjective. It's really about their users or a developer's individual journey, their subjective reality. It may not be shared between different people, and that's what makes it such a hard problem, because engineering is deterministic. You and I write the same line of code, we're going to get the same result, right? But the experience is going to be completely different, and that's why it's a hard problem. None of us like dealing with it, because it's not deterministic. Now, let's understand what the problem is. The problem is friction, right? And friction stops a developer dead in their tracks. Now, we all know that developers are basically, especially an enthusiastic developer, is an object in motion, right? They're going, bam. How many of us have had the experience? We wake up one day, and we're like, I want to build that thing. And we say, I'm going to do this weekend. And we get started, and we stop dead in our tracks 3 or 4 days later, right? Exactly. Because we were an object in motion, and what did we experience? We experienced friction. Right? Friction from incomprehensible error messages, bad documentation, outdated documentation, or poorly structured sort of repos, internal terminology that makes sense to the engineer who's been writing that piece of code for the last 2 years, but makes no sense to you. How many of you think Node just means something in Node.js? Or something just in the blockchain, or something in this? I mean, these overloaded terms, the same word, have 6 different meanings, depends on the context, right? That's a huge source of friction because you go down the wrong rabbit hole. So understanding the developer's perspective is so critical, and that's why understanding that a developer is an object in motion who hates friction is critical to designing good DevX. And, oh, this is not working. Could someone help me flip to the next slide, please? Oh, yeah, actually, it wasn't friction. This was user error. I was hitting the wrong button. Total user error, right? Thank you. Yeah, so to solve this problem, there are really three pillars, right? The first is we need to have what I call newbie empathy. The second is we need to help all newbies build the right mental models. Why are mental models critical? Because you can't actually scale unlimited documentation and individualized help. What you need to do is give them the tools and the mental models to help them reason through the problem. And why do we want them to reason through the problem? Because it gets them to their outcome faster, right? So newbie empathy. Keep in mind a newbie could be someone completely new to code, someone new to Web3 but experienced in code, or somebody new to code and Web3, right? So there's all sorts of content in there that we need to think about. Now, friction is a direct attack on what developers care for most, which is velocity, right? You have the inspiration, you want to quickly leap into implementation, and you want to get to the shortest time to demo, right? We all want to show off what we've created, the minimum viable demo. And anything that stops us in our track is an object of hate and ire, right? So that's the developer experience, the developer velocity flywheel. That's what I call the flywheel, right? And a good developer velocity flywheel will drive the adoption flywheel. So you have the first contact with any given technology, getting rapid results, compressing the time to demo. Then you have the wow factor, and sorry, my wow seemed to have broken over a new line there. And that drives adoption. With more adoption, right, comes a host of benefits. You end up building real services. Other people see those real services, get curious, start using word of mouth to spread the news about the technology. Community feedback and adoption improves the product, and improved product helps a product get to, or a technology get to platform status, which then drives more adoption and improved velocity. So ultimately, the developer subjective experience has resulted in adoption status. And that's the link that a lot of people don't properly draw, which is why good developer experience is a winner-takes-all strategy, right? It is the critical differentiator, especially in a place like Web3, which is complex enough as it is. Now, terrific tech has never been enough. We know this in the crypto space. We've seen the difference between adoption of the SDKs of Stripe versus PayPal. That's a classic example. And we know that developer experience drives the adoption feedback loop, and it is a loop because it goes round and round and it accelerates, right? Now, here at Chainlink, we take this, as Harry mentioned, we take this very, very seriously. We're very passionate about this. This is part of our DNA as a DevRel team, okay? So we think DevX is a product strategy, right? It gives us the insights and feedbacks that we need from developers and actual users in the wild, not our personal opinion, not the opinion of the engineers who are actually developing the product. It's what do users think of it. It's their experience that matters most to us, right? And we take that feedback back into the team and evolve a better product. That's why we move so fast. That's why it's been a big year for us in terms of building some really sophisticated technology. We stay close to our users, right? So it is a product strategy. It is also a competitive strategy in the sense that we understand the importance of having developers adopt something so that we set a standard, right? We drive the adoption to set a standard. We want to build the future that we want to be part of, and so it's a good ability. Having good developer experience, staying close to the developers is a way for us to stay close to what they value, which helps us see around corners, right? So that's a competitive strategy. There's also an advocacy strategy. We view our job as not just being builders of tech that we think is cool. Our job is to champion for your needs as the actual end user of the tool, and that is critical. We advocate for you, right? And an example for that is the previous speaker talked about Chainlink functions. So I've been very closely involved in that, right? You build an NPM package that abstracts away all the complexity, and just a handful of commands, and you can get what used to take 3 days, you get it down to less than an hour. That came entirely from our users, right? So that's an example of how it's a growth strategy, right? Now let me talk about it as being a growth strategy, right? We use it as a way to drive adoption by making more SDKs, making more repos, better quality documentation. We constantly refresh our documentation, right? We work on community events. We do a ton of educational content. You probably recognize that face of my good friend Richard over there. He's always cranking out really great educational content that smooths out the experience for people, all sorts of newbies, or people with experience, depending on what you're targeting at that moment, right? So that's why we truly, 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 truly believe the developer experience is a winning strategy, right? It is for everyone. It is the rising tide that lifts all boats. So no matter which stage of the journey you're in, no matter what part of the business you're in or what part of the protocol, whatever your task, remember, it's always developer experience time if you're in the world of doing tools for developers, right? If your end user is going to be a developer, it's always DevX time, right? So with that in mind, I want to encourage all of you to reach out to any of us, to me, whoever you like in the Chainlink team, and tell us what you want, tell us what you think, tell us how you feel. Because ultimately, we're here to make you guys feel happy about the projects that you're building and shorten that time to demo. Thank you.